Hello children, good morning. Hope you are all safe at home, isn't it? Yes, please do stay indoors and take care of your health. So, in the first video, we have learned about the three branches of social science. In this video, we are going to learn about the first chapter, that is Introduction to History. So, what we have learned in social science branches when I was explaining you, I told you there are three branches in social science: history, geography and civics. In this lesson, we are talking only about history. That is, we are going to learn about the meaning of history, the importance, the significance of history, and why we have to learn history. What is the use of learning history? All these things we are going to learn in this video. Not only that, in this chapter we are also learning about the role of sources of history. The sources of history are those things which help us to build history. That is called as sources of history. So we are learning sources of history also in this chapter, and also the contributions of some Europeans to Indian history. That is, many Europeans have come to our country and they have given their views in some of their books. Not only that, some Europeans have translated our ancient Sanskrit texts into English or into any other languages. So all these together have become our sources of history. These have helped us to build our Indian history. This also we are going to learn in this chapter, that is Introduction to Indian History or Introduction to History. In this lesson, we are going to learn what is history, significance of history, sources of history, and contributions of some Europeans to Indian history. First, we shall learn what is history. Systematic presentation of past events is called history. This is the definition of history. Systematic presentation here means arranging things in an order that includes the accuracy of time, place, and the person involved in the incident. History tells us about the journey of human beings, that is, from evolving as a human being, from being a monkey to becoming the modern day man. History tells us the success and failures of humans in that journey. For example, children, before early man learned how to make fire, he was scared of animals. But later he is able to, but after he learned how to make fire, he was able to tame those animals. Isn't it, children? Not only the fire, even the wheel, how the wheel was invented. In the starting, he got many failures, but still he was able to find out how to make the wheel. When any historical incident is explained, a few things has to be remembered. What are they? We shall learn. The accuracy of time, place and person should be made clear to explain about history. The accuracy of time, that is, we should know when the incident exactly happened. Next is place, that is, we should know where the incident exactly had happened. And the last one is the person, that is, who were the persons involved in the incident. This means when the incident took place, where and by whom. These things should be made very clear to become a history. See these pictures carefully and then listen to what I say.
listen carefully. Once upon a time, there was a king in a place. He fought a war and won the war. Ashoka, who ruled Pataliputra in 261 BC, fought the Kalinga War. When I said, once upon a time there was a king in a place, he fought a war, this means I am saying a story and it is not history. Why it is a story? Because I have not mentioned the name of the king, nor the place, nor the time of the, that is, when the war was fought also is not mentioned, so it is only a story. When I said Ashoka, who ruled Pataliputra in 261 BCE, fought the Kalinga War, that means it is history. Because here we have mentioned the name of the king, the name of the place where the battle was fought, and the time also. So we have the accuracy of the place, time, and the person. Hence, this can be called as history. Now, I think it is clear what is history. History is a systematic presentation of past events. Now, we know what is history. But why should we study history? How can history help us in any ways? I will give you an example and then tell you that why we have to learn history. See the picture here, children. The person who has touched the fire has got the burning sensation and he will not do the same again. This is known as memory. It has been saved in our minds that if we touch fire, our hands will get burnt. So we will not touch the fire with our hands. We call this as memory, recollection, and retention. Memory means that it has saved in our mind that if we touch fire with our hands, our hands will get burnt. That is memory. When we go in front of the fire, we will recollect our memory and will be careful that we should not touch the fire. It is recollection. Now, what is retention? Retention is that we are not touching the fire again with our hands. Instead of that, we will use tongs to take away the vessel kept on the fire. This is called retention. From the memory what we had recollected, we will be safe and also do our work carefully. This is retention. If humans did not have this memory, they would have done the same mistake again and again and would not be able to discover so many things and get progressed in life. As human beings need memory to progress, in the same way a society also. Now, what is that memory that helps the society to progress? And that is nothing but history. Yes, just like memory serves human to survive, history serves as a memory for a society, state or a nation, and even the world too. So you can say history is like a memory to the progress of any nation. History is a record of good and wrong decisions, joyful and sorrowful experiences, and the difficulties faced by our ancestors. History also helps us in making decisions. The principles, the ideologies followed by our ancestors in the past will be a model and also a guidance for the next generations. The valor, that is the courage, the adventures, which means the risky activities, patriotism, the love for the land, and the sacrifices done by our ancestors will always inspire all the next generations. Another important point to be noted is that by introducing our culture and heritage, history to the next generations arouses the feeling of pride and honor for our nation and the world at large. That means the people belonging to the younger generation, when they are introduced to our rich culture and heritage, their love for the land, that is, the nation or the country, will increase. Therefore, history helps in developing the spirit of patriotism. Now, you may ask, who will give us about the details of history? For that, you will get the answer, that is, a historian. A historian studies about the past events with the help of all the available sources and then constructs history. Okay, now we know a historian constructs history. But who was the first person to tell us how history can be constructed? And that first person was Herodotus. Herodotus, he was a Greek writer. He first taught how to write history. So, Herodotus is considered as the father of history. He was the first person to show the world how to conduct immensely valuable history. Now we shall study the sources of history.
We learned what is history. So in that, when we were learning what is history, we learned that without authenticity we cannot know anything about history, and without any proper sources we cannot say any incident as a history. So to learn history we need the most important thing, and that is the sources of history. Which are the sources of history we shall learn in this lesson in brief. So the sources of history can be divided into two groups. They are literary sources and archaeological sources. Now literary sources can be again divided into two. Literary sources can be further divided into two groups. They are written literature and oral literature. Again, written literature can again be divided into two groups. Native literature and foreign literature. Now, what is native literature and what is foreign literature? Written literature, you know. Written literature means the ancient text, scripts that will be written in a form of a written form. Those sources are called as written literature. In this written literature, two groups are there, that is native literature and foreign literature. Now what is native literature? Native basically means the regional land. The written literature which is of the regional land, that is called native literature. That is the literature which has been written by the people of that native land, of that land. That is called native literature. And what is foreign literature? The word itself says foreign. That means it does not belong to our land. Such literary sources which is written by the foreign people, that is in the beginning only I have told you, contributions of some Europeans I have told you. That is what here it means, the literature which is written by many Europeans, not only Europeans, many other foreigners also are there in the sources of history. So literary sources can be divided into two groups, that is written literature and oral literature. First, we will learn about written literature, then we will go to oral literature. Written literature can again be further divided into native literature and foreign literature. Then now we will come to oral literature. What is there in oral literature? Oral literature can be further divided into two, that is Lavanis and folk tales. What are Lavanis? Lavanis are the songs sung by the local people. What are these songs about? These songs are about the heroic deeds of that leaders of that place. They are called as Lavanis. That is, for example, in Maharashtra, if you go and see in Maharashtra, in rural some villages, they sing Lavanis of Shivaji Maharaj because he was a great hero. He has done many heroic deeds. So people sing songs about him. That is, they have become the household songs. They are called as Lavanis. Then what are these folk tales? Folk tales are also the regional stories about the great leaders. Not only that, these folk tales include moral values also. So now in short, in brief, we have learned about the sources of history. What are the sources of history? They are the what actually sources of history means? They are the proof which give us that say that there something was there in that period. Authenticity. To get the authenticity, we need to have the sources of history. These sources of history can be divided into two groups. They are literary sources and archaeological sources. Literary sources we were learning. In that literary sources, the first is the written literature and the second is the oral literature. In written literature, we have the literature written by the native people and also the literature written by the foreign people. Next, that is the oral literature. Another branch of literary sources is oral literature. One is Lavanis, the other one is folk tales. Now we shall move on to archaeological sources. What are these archaeological sources? Archaeological sources here include monuments. Monuments is the temples, the old ancient buildings, whatever we get, the tombs, all these are included in monuments. Then the old coins. The old copper coins, gold coins, silver coins, we all get, no? We can see that in museums and all. They are also the archaeological sources, one of the archaeological sources. Not only that, inscriptions. What are the inscriptions? Inscriptions are nothing but some deeds that has been carved on the stones. Earlier, what the kings used to do, they did not have any mobile camera to take the pictures and keep it as a memory. So what they used to do, they used to make their sculptors to carve their deeds. That is, either if they have won a war, they would carve that, they would mention in that stone, that is, they would mention the name of the king and in which battle he has won, when he has won, where the battle was fought. All those things used to be written in that inscription. Not only about that, whatever the king had done, some important words also, even that was also engraved on the stones. They are called inscriptions. Not only that, we say another group of archaeological sources, that is included in others. What are these others? That is the clay remains, the skulls of many long years we will dug the ground, we will get all the bones, the skulls, all these things. Not only that, we get the other parts, ಏನಂತೀವಿ ಮಣ್ಣಿಂದ ಕುಡಿಕೆ, ಮೂಳೆಗಳು, ಸ್ಕಲ್ಗಳು ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ ಒಂದೊಂದ್ಸತಿ ಈ ಭೂಮಿಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುವಂಥ ಕೆಲವು ವಸ್ತುಗಳನ್ನ. So these are called as others. They are all included in others. So all these things are included in archaeological sources. Now you can say sources of history can be divided into two groups: literary sources and archaeological sources. Literary sources can be divided into written literature and oral literature. Again, written literature can be divided into native literature and foreign literature, and another branch is oral literature. In oral literature, we learn about the Lavanies and folk tales. The other branch of sources of history is archaeological sources. That includes monuments, coins, inscriptions, and others.
The next topic we are learning is India as introduced by Europeans. Indians knew history in the form of Puranas, but the Europeans had a different way of understanding or construct history. The European Jesuit priests who came to India in the 16th century were the first to start a systematic way to study the lifestyle of Indians. Among them, Henry Roth, who had settled in Agra, translated Sanskrit grammar into Latin language about 350 years ago. After a century later, that is after 100 years, a century means 100 years. After a century later, Father Cavadax identified that there are many similarities between Sanskrit and European languages. That means the pronunciation of many Sanskrit words or the meanings of some Sanskrit words were same to same as some European languages, or in other terms there was some resemblance between the Sanskrit and the European languages. At the same time, the British had got the revenue rights in Bengal. That is, they had got the permission to do trade, that is business in India, in Bengal. The British officers tried to understand the history, traditions, customs, values and laws of Indians to strengthen their trade relationship. Now, you may ask, ma'am, to do business, why they have to know all this tradition, customs, values and beliefs, isn't it, children? Because they wanted to attract their customers. You know, when you go to any shop, the shopkeeper, if he understands your language, then he will be very friendly with you and talk everything and says that if you buy this thing, it will be very good to your family. ಇದು ತಗೊಳ್ಳಿ ಮಾ, ಇದು ಚೆನ್ನಾಗಿರುತ್ತೆ, ನಿಮಗೆ ಆ ಹಬ್ಬಕ್ಕೆ ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಈ ಹಬ್ಬಕ್ಕೆ ಯೂಸ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತೆಲ್ಲ ಅಟ್ರಾಕ್ಟ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ ನಿಮ್ಮನ್ನ. And somehow they will sell their product, isn't it? The same way, these British people, what they wanted is, they wanted to sell their goods in India for a high amount and buy things from Indians at a low cost. So these British people wanted to know about the traditions, customs, values, beliefs, everything about Indians to improve their business. And some British administrators were attracted towards Indian literature and culture. As a result, Manusmriti, Bhagavad Gita and other literary works were translated into English. Sir William Jones, who came to India as a judge of the Supreme Court in Bengal, contributed immensely to the study of Indology. Now, what is Indology? Indology is a branch of knowledge or science which studies about the culture and history of India. William Jones established the Asiatic Society in 1784 CE, that is Common Era, at Calcutta. He was a multilingual expert. Hence, he translated the great works like Gita Govinda, Manava Dharma Shastra, and Kalidasa's Shakuntala from Sanskrit to English, as he was a multilingual expert. That means he knew many languages. Another important Orientalist and Indologist was Max Muller. He was a German scholar who wrote an English work, Sacred Book of the East, in 50 volumes. James Mill, who was another historian from Scotland, wrote History of India in 6 volumes. These scholars never visited India. Abbe Dubois, a French missionary, arrived and settled at Ganjam near Srirangpatna, and he lived as a sage by adopting the local culture and customs. He was called Doddaswami by the local people. He wrote Hindu manners, customs, and ceremonies, which he has presented Indian customs, values, thoughts, festivals, and Varnashrama system. Abbe Dubois lived here for 24 years and returned to France. Many other historians also have introduced the different stages of Indian history. They are Elphinstone, Coles, Eliot, and Dawson. Many others who have successfully recorded and preserved some sources of history for the reconstruction of Karnataka history are Francis Buchanan, Colonel Wilkes Mackenzie, B.L. Rice, and Fleet. Not only that, many more European scholars have successfully recorded and preserved inscriptions, manuscripts, chronicles, and contemporary events for the reconstruction of Karnataka history. Thus, many Europeans have been successful in introducing a new way of understanding and constructing history to the Indians.
So, in this lesson, we have learned about the definition of history. That is, the record of past events is called history. Then, importance of history. Why we need history, why we have to learn history. Just like memory, how memory is to a human, history is to the nation or a country. Those things we have learned. Then we have learned about the different sources of history, that is literary sources and archaeological sources. We have learnt about the sources of history. Not only that, we have learnt about the contributions of some Europeans to Indian history. So, all these things are there in this video. You have to go through all these topics carefully, understand everything, and if you have any queries or if you have any questions, you can WhatsApp me or contact me. I think everyone has my WhatsApp number, so you can contact me through WhatsApp. If you have any question, you can ask me and get it cleared. Okay children, thank you for this session.